What is up, guys? Welcome back, or welcome to Running for Views. Today we're going to be talking about tune-up races before an ultra. But before I get into that, did you know that 89% of you aren't subscribed? Hit that subscribe button or you're going to regret it. Trust me, you will. Just do it! Just kidding. Please subscribe. Thank you. So, what is a tune-up race? This is a race that you do before your goal race that's meant to be kind of like a practice race. It's usually shorter than your goal race, and you're supposed to take it relatively easy during this tune-up race. They can also be a way to practice your nutrition before your goal race, test your race gear, and give you the confidence to take on longer distances. So before I even start talking about whether tune-up races are good or bad, I want you guys to comment below what you guys think about tune-up races. Go ahead. I'll wait. You did it? Okay. So I think tune-up races are bad. They are not good. Don't do it. That's my personal opinion. There. I said it. Well, I've said it like 100 times on this channel, but it's the first time I've said it in this video. Anyways, here's a list of reasons why I think that tune-up races are bad. Don't do them. Number 1, more injuries. I feel like tune-up races, especially in ultra races, are a surefire way to get injured. When training for a 5K up to a marathon, sure, go ahead and do a tune-up race. But when you're doing ultra races as tune-up races, it's just way too long. I did a 100K race as a tune-up race for my 100-mile race. And it took me about 1 month to recover from this 100K race, which I feel like is pretty normal. My knees were on fire and I could barely walk. Now you could argue that I chose too difficult of a 100K race, because I did. But I feel like 62 miles is 62 miles and it's going to hurt no matter what. So that was a month in the build up to my goal race, to my 100-mile goal race, that I just wasn't able to train. I wasn't able to follow the training schedule that I had been following. I wasn't able to fulfill my training plan that I had laid out before me. And even with me not being able to finish that 100-miler that I was training for in the end, I still feel like I was lucky. I feel lucky because I didn't get injured from doing that 100K race up to training for my 100-mile race that I was training for. So I think that tune-up races are just a way to get injured, and that a lot of people do get injured from doing these tune-up races. Number 2, mental fatigue. Mental fatigue hit me hard at my 100-mile race after doing that 100K tune-up race. I just felt like my head wasn't in the race and I just didn't have the mental capacity to take on running 100 miles. So I think that one example of this is the Black Canyon 100K event that took place a few weeks ago. So no one who had a golden ticket already going into that race for Western States podiumed in the Black Canyon 100K. And I think it's because they had already pushed themselves so hard in order to get that golden ticket that they didn't have anything left come that Black Canyon 100K race. Or it's because they knew that they didn't have to push themselves to get that golden ticket, so their mind just wouldn't let them go to the pain cave like they needed to do during that race in order to podium. Mentally, there is nothing harder than running an ultra. But you know what is mentally harder than running an ultra? Running 2 ultras. Number 3, you'll go too hard. So believe it or not, I know you guys. Who's ever watching this video right now, I know who you are. You act like a person who's very disciplined, very smart, and then you get to that starting line of a race and that all just goes out the window. And I'm the same way. I get to that starting line and it's like an animal is unleashed inside of me. and I can take on anyone who's standing at that starting line. Doing a tune-up race is not supposed to be like this. It's meant to be taken easy and just for you to practice for your goal race while getting a great aerobic stimulus. And if you go out guns a-blazing at your tune-up race, that's one less match that you'll have at that goal race that you're going for. So there's a term in cycling that ultra runners have also adapted called burning your matches. So burning your matches is when you're pushing yourself past a point that you're not going to be able to sustain. So in the Tour de France, when people are pushing really hard on an uphill or sprinting to the finish line or just pushing the pace to try to break your opponents. But the thing is, once you're out of matches, you're done. There's nothing left in the tank. Ultra running is the same way. You have a certain number of matches and you don't know how many there are. So during your tune-up race, if you're going hard and burning those matches, that means that during your goal race, those are matches that you're not going to have. So yeah, I think that during tune-up races, no matter what, you're going to go too hard. Just from the fact that ultra running is going too hard too far. Number 4, longer recovery period. So think about it, if you're running a marathon as a tune-up race for a 50K, which is 5 miles longer, it's basically gonna take the same amount of time for you to recover. Same goes for those longer races like the 100K and 100-mile race. So if you're on your feet for 16 hours while training for an event that's going to take you maybe 32 hours, 16 hours is still a long time. You're going to need time to recover. And that 16 hours of running has to fit into your training schedule for your goal race. So it doesn't work. So when I did a 50-mile race way back in the day while training for a 100-mile race, I had to take multiple weeks off after training for that 50-mile race because it was a hard race. So these tune-up races are meant to fit into your training schedule, but I don't know about you, but I need recovery time after finishing an ultra marathon. Number 5, you can get all the practice you need in long runs / back-to-back long runs. Now, if you've seen any of my past videos, you'll know that those back-to-back long runs in my training plans are basically the things that I think get me to that finish line during my goal race. So back-to-back long runs is when you're doing one long run after another. So that's one high mileage day followed by another high mileage day. So on that 100-mile training plan that I put out, the longest back-to-back long run that is on there is 35 miles long. So that's 35 miles one day followed by 35 miles the next day. That's 70 miles in 2 days. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between this and a tune-up race? Well, for starters, there's no pressure on long runs. Maybe you've heard of the term death before DNF. There's nothing like that for long runs. There's no death before not finishing a long run. It lets you see how your body is feeling and if you can do it again the next day without having the pressure of a race setting. It also breaks the run up into 2 days rather than doing it all at once. So this gives your muscles time to recover and rebuild for the next day of that back-to-back long run. So you'll be doing this instead of underfueling on your tune-up races and having to recover for double the amount of time. And back-to-back long runs and normal long runs are a great way to practice for your race. You can easily test your gear just like you would test your gear in a tune-up race. You can just as easily practice your nutrition in a long run rather than do it at a tune-up race. But you get it. Anything that can be done during a tune-up race can also be done in long runs and back-to-back long runs. Number 6. What if your tune-up race doesn't go according to plan? So like I was talking about earlier, that 100K race that I did as a tune-up race for my 100-mile race did not go according to plan. That 100K race was bad. I thought that I could finish that race in maybe 18 hours, but guess what? It ended up taking me about 24 hours to finish. And that took away a lot of confidence when it was time for my goal race. I felt like I did bad in my tune-up race, so why would I do well in my goal race? I mean, I did bad here, why wouldn't I do bad here? I know that a lot of people talk about how tune-up races are great confidence boosters to push yourself to that next level in mileage, but what if that tune-up race doesn't go according to plan? If a long run doesn't go well, you can just try it again the next week. But if your B race or your tune-up race doesn't go well, what does that mean for your goal race? Just something to think about. However, if you are still team tune-up race, after listening to all of my very valid arguments, here's how you should properly do them. If you want to do a tune-up race so bad, I think you should do a full build-up for that tune-up race. So that means following a 16-week training plan, preferably one of mine, to get to that tune-up race. So it basically becomes a goal race. Then once you've finished that tune-up race, you can take a month or two to start building back up mileage slowly so you don't get injured, and then start the training for a longer race or for your goal race. Doesn't that sound a lot better? So even in Killian's training plans from the Uphill Athlete, link in description below, he schedules them very far out from your goal race. So for the 100-mile training plan, he puts a 100-kilometer race 17 weeks before running that 100-mile race. For the 100K race, he puts a 50-kilometer race 8 weeks before the 100K race. And for the 50K training plan, he didn't even put a tune-up race at all in the whole training plan. Also, keep in mind that a lot of professional athletes only do maybe 3 ultras a year. This is how they prevent injury and give themselves time to build up for that next race. That's why I only do maybe 1 or 2 races a year. If I'm doing a 100-mile race, I only do that one race for the whole year, just one 100-mile race. But yeah, guys, that should wrap things up for today. So what do you think? Did I miss anything, guys? Do you think that tune-up races are still a good thing, even after listening to everything I had to say? Leave it in the comments below, and I will answer any questions or comments that you have down there. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. And if you liked the video, smash that like button, because 1 like equals 1 less person that will do a tune-up race.